Help, look, American. I said, we're on fire.
She's upstairs, you
I
see.
know,
She'll
but
say
she
there's flames coming out of the
Getting
floor.
warmer now.
Yes, it's hot now.
Warmer.
Okay.
Last call for noise.
What?
Not this doesn't apply to you, gentlemen. No.
Stomach in.
Stick stomach.
Well done,
Wait, don't roll your sleeves.
My sister makes love for her living, and that's how the money rolls in.
Rolls in, rolls in.
Oh, that's how the money rolls in, rolls in. You get it? Thank you, sir.
You always do it twice.
Rolls in, oh, that's how the money rolls in. And then the other one was, my brother is a missionary. He saves little girls from their sins. He'll save you if you ever do ask him. And that's how the money rolls in.
I don't get that one.
No, I just made it up.
Right.
All right, let's get on with this now.
Yeah.
What's your name? Kurt.
Are we okay, or
Kurt.
Kurt.
we're waiting for?
No, it's not Kurt, it's Kurt.
Oh, Kurt.
No, it's Kurt.
Here we go. Okay. Are we ready?
Ready.
Speed. Okay. Gentlemen, could you tell me about courtship in your time when you were lads? So what were the? How was it conducted? How did a gentleman meet a lady or otherwise?
Well, I will. I think maybe you should be the older.
Because I'm
member.
older.
As you're slightly older, and you give us the
When
older,
I was
and then
young-
maybe I'll come in with the other one later on.
You come in with the others, yes. When I was young, courtship. Oh, there were so many. I'm not trying to be funny, but there were. And it was difficult. But the thing is, I first of all have to be attracted by the face. If I'm attracted by the face, then one looks at the rest of the body. I'm serious. It's absolutely true. And if that's okay as well, then I start up good conversation with them. And that's how it goes from that on. Now, how about you?
Well, in the later years, we went to various cocktail parties. This was mainly in London, and cocktail parties arranged in the debutante sort of way, and they all arrived, and the men arrived, and we had gone to schools which were mainly either boys or girls, and so suddenly we were all put together, and we went from there into a wonderful getting to know you. But it was terribly difficult because, in a way, we had never known anybody prior to that. I know you're all going to say, ha 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 ha, well, but in fact, we hadn't actually had any close contact until maybe the age of, shall we say,
18.
18. English, but there we are. Such is life. It wasn't coeducational, so what can you do?
So what did you? Obviously, did either of you have sisters or any other contact, or were you sent off?
I had a sister.
And what you knew of women, did it come from your mother and your sister then, or?
No. I don't think so. My sister never really gave me any advice at all on women. And my mother, I thought she thought that everything would work all right if she said nothing.
Can we stop for
And,
a second? I'm sorry.
Asking about
Well, I think just mostly about how one came to learn how did you know what to do, or did you know what to do when you wanted to court a lady when you really hadn't had much to do with them, basically up to a certain age?
It was embarrassing because you were very young. And I remember the first, that's a long time ago, the first girl I ever fell in love with was a girl of about, I was then about 17, and she was 22. Now, I was embarrassed because if you go to English public schools, you are totally with boys all the time. And here we are, suddenly confronted by a female. Nobody had advised me at all. And so I suppose one had, as this is part of your life as a man, it became natural to me. It was natural just to behave properly with her. And it went on for about 2 years, something like that. And she
Yes,
was much older than me.
yes, but the word I think in the same system that we were brought up, although there was a time difference, we were all told in a way what to do and what not to do and how to do it. I mean, Mother would always say, if a lady comes into the room, you get up for starters, and preferably if she's about to come in, you open the door. And so we were always made to feel that, you know, the female, the girl, was a thing, not necessarily beauty in our minds, but at least a female, and then had to be cosseted and be well looked after.
Which is not much done today. I find with my sons that not as polite as they should be. And as he said, when a lady came into, or a girl came into the room, you got up from your chair immediately and offered your seat to her, like, for say, on subways and buses and things like that. I always get up. Whenever when there's no more room for anybody, I get up immediately. But that's been true the whole of my life like that. And that's the first part, you know. That's the first. That's the way of being polite to people and have good manners, which in England, of course, is a very important part of your life.
And at the same time, I think the mother of the girl in question was always telling the girl that she was no doubt the prettiest thing that had ever come across the Great Divide or whatever, and it's a long one, the Sierra Nevada, and in that respect, she thought she, in a way, was, because she was being told this all the time, that she, you know, was hardly touchable. And so in a way, in those days, and we're going back maybe 40, 50 years, there was a greater divide, because she was the prettiest thing, you were just a male, but at the same time, she wanted what she felt she'd been told by her mother, as well as being pretty, that you will maybe find a nest and security. And so there was a sort of the word is a cross divide, I think, maybe.
Yeah,
Can
I
we
think
pause
Yeah.
for a moment while we wait for this airplane?
Oh yes.
What? On? Are we off again?
Oh yeah.
Almost.
We're gonna have just a bit.
That's right. And I suppose really the other thing that happened when I was a much younger guy was that we had in the army in the regiment a lot of girls that would turn up for various functions in Germany, and they were in a way sort of like what you might call camp followers, but they were trying to find that moment, you know, to make their mark, as we would make a mark for a woman and be involved on a joint basis. And so you had that sort of following, as you might say.
Now, how did you both been married before, and how did you propose?
How did I propose? I think I probably just said, "Will you marry me?" Because you would only say that if you were in love. And to me, you see, love is the important part of every marriage. Money, position, all that sort of thing means nothing to me at all. And if I loved a woman, really loved her, then I would ask her to marry me. And that's, but you've gone through all sorts of things by then, you know. It's,
Well, when was it in your first marriage? When did you propose? What year, and what were the circumstances of that?
oh, what year? I'll tell you exactly what year.
Oh, just a second. I'm
Hang
sorry.
on.
I just playing. We'll be over in just a second.
Is that window open that back there already? All closed, okay.
When was D-Day? 44?
Hmm?
D-Day, 44?
44, June 6th.
You're all so serious.
What? Are we?
Don't be so serious.
Yeah, all right.
Oh, we can be serious
Well,
if
you
we
can
have to.
play it. I
yeah.
mean, I don't know how you want this. I mean, I
Oh, you
can
don't have to
start
be
mine.
so serious. Yeah, it's really.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
relax, I'd say.
Yeah.
So it's just a conversation.
Yeah. So, when you proposed, what were the circumstances?
Well, the circumstances, I'm old in here, so this is
Not by
more-
much, not by much, really.
19 years.
Is it 19 years?
19,
God, I thought when I first met you, you said it was only 15.
no, 19. I actually said it was 20.
Oh, you did.
It's now 19.
Your teeth look good, though.
Yes, they do, yes. I just hadn't put in yet.
It's all those rings I'm worried
I
about.
know.
Are they all wedding rings?
Yes, one of them.
A couple of them.
One of them is. That one is.
Yes.
Anyway, getting back to
Very
your...
pretty. It's Russian. The Russian one
question.
on down there. Mm.
um,
That's why you wear
Proposing.
silk stockings.
Ah.
All the way up.
Proposing. How did that?
proposing, that's
Yes.
right. Now this I have to be serious about
No,
because it
don't.
was
for God's
serious.
sake. No, it was not. You
It
told me
was.
later
You weren't
on it
alive
wasn't.
then, so how do you know?
Well, you told me later. You told me I was the first one to know. We were on that flight on Dan Air. Remember the charter flight down to Palma?
You were with somebody else then.
No. I
She
thought,
must
oh,
have
maybe I
been.
got it wrong.
But the thing is that at that time, in 1943, I'd been on the Sicilian invasion and got captured and escaped and came back to England in time for preparing for the Normandy invasion. And I'd known my wife at that time for about, then not my wife, but for about 4 years. And I decided that with this invasion coming off, that I might not come back. And so decided, let's get married. And
But before you actually went off.
yeah,
So you
before-
got. You actually
I was
got-
married before in Normandy, yeah, before Normandy, yeah. And went off.
Did you have a honeymoon before?
No,
You just went off like that.
just went off, and I was wounded and came back and met her immediately.
Again?
And yes,
Were you
again.
We were in the docks at Portsmouth.
Yeah, it was all nicely arranged.
Alex, how did you propose?
Oh, mine was a slightly more difficult period. I wasn't at war at the time, although
That was her anyway.
It was actually at 986 Fifth Avenue, where she had an apartment, and I'd only been with, as Mickey says, courting her for maybe 6 months, and obviously that was an American girl in New York, and in those days I think maybe that might have been the period of time which was allotted, if you know what I mean, and so, or maybe I was a bit slow, but anyway I finally got the message like it's now or forget it, and so I thought it's now, and so that was the first. There was the first time, in fact, that I suddenly realized that this girl, not necessarily this girl, but girls weren't necessarily the little things that you got up at table, opened doors for, pulled chairs out, because maybe they were in more control, like maybe mother was. I mean, who knows? But in other words, in control as well. And so then I sort of thought, well, it's best to do this, and got on with it.
Now, how did the rise
How'd
of
you like those
feminism
bananas?
and all of that,
What?
the rise of feminism and all of that in the late '60s affect you gentlemen as you were bachelors then, I believe? Was that an
No.
unfortunate development or fortunate or?
The rise, I've always acknowledged it and thought, why the devil shouldn't women be equal
Shouldn't
to
what?
men?
I can't hear you. I'm a bit deaf from those tanks.
Turn round.
Yeah.
Why should not women be equal to men?
Oh, yes, yes.
And so with their rise, I rather enjoyed it. I thought this is rather good because it takes a little responsibility off myself, that they can also do everything we can.
No,
And,
but you miss one thing, and that is the hunter and the
maybe
hunted.
two things.
Well, maybe a few things, but you see, we come down to the hunter and the hunted, and we the basic. My basic feelings.
That's better.
My
Your
basic feelings are you are either the hunter or you are being hunted, and it requires various situations in order to get the hunter to lie down and take the hunted into one's own situation in the womb or whatever. I say the womb, but you know, etc. And so basically you get to the stage where you think to yourself, if she's hunting me, when she gets me, will she know what to do? Now the years have gone by, and I think now maybe she does know what to do, but in the early days they knew fuck all.
I beg your pardon.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's wrong.
Could you give me an example?
They
of that?
didn't know what to do. In fact, you know.
Well,
you know.
what didn't they know what to do?
Well, they didn't know how to make love. They sort of lay there. And what was it called? What position was that called on the back? What's it called? The prosaic position? No, the parsimonial. You know, what was it called? The
Prone.
Thank you very much.
Prone position.
You know, open your legs and wham. You know, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. You know, that sort of thing. And that's not very helpful, really. You know, you need somebody, you know, to get into, like, we are basically worse than animals, but we do have animal traits.
Who, you are?
No, not you.
No, not me, good.
and so, you know, you've got to have somebody, a mate, who knows how to turn you on. Now, you know, how are you going to do that? And so it goes from there. You've got to have that sort of connection.
So wouldn't it
You don't have to
wouldn't the
react, yeah.
sexual revolution, so to speak, or the rise of feminism, you're saying that eventually that resulted women who are more aggressive or more...
Absolutely, yeah. Women have become far more aggressive. I think also exemplified.
But I think rightly so.
Exemplified
I mean,
by
rightly so.
Cosmopolitan magazine, which comes out, I don't know, every week or every month or whatever, and it has things, you know, will he want you next time you smell of body odor, you know, and can you keep it up for 24 hours? I had 4,000, you know, orgasms, and he only had 75. It's all making the woman fluffing her up, and so she thinks she's become like an Amazonian. But it still has to be the man who has to go and hunt. We are hunters.
Okay. Hold on, just smell it.
Change the tape.
Yeah. Okay.
I like that speed.
Has the world taken a wrong turn? By that I mean, is romance dead? Or is that a good thing, that romance is dead?
As far as I'm concerned, no. To me, my whole life has been romance. I've devoted, other than the work that I do in order to create the money to produce what I want, my life has been one romance after another, and I've been very, very happy. See, we're actually both different, although very, very good friends. We have the same sense of humor, which is the important part between men. And he calls the hunted and the hunter. I've never thought of myself as a hunter at all. I've always thought of it as a romantic thing. He knows this too. And he doesn't agree with me, you see. But I'm a very simple man. I like romance. I like love. And you see, he doesn't know what love is.
Thank you, Mickey. Yeah, that's yes. Love in the sense of of moving together and understanding each other. But unfortunately, with the feminine, the female, the movements which have gone ahead after, say, the suffragettes sort of bashed themselves against the in chains against Buckingham Palace or wherever it was years ago, etc., etc. We've now come on to a situation where we see everything in the raw all the time, and so one sees it more as a raw piece of meat. And that is not
we.
I'm producing we as sort of a lot of people who do.
Who
And
think the way you do.
Yeah,
See, but I
well,
don't.
maybe.
You see.
But so we have to try to simmer down and try to get back to the old ideals. And that's very difficult because of all the economic situations one has around the world, and et cetera, and many
Sugar
problems.
and gold.
And sugar and gold, and girls in Rwanda who are circumcised at the age of 3, and men in the Amish country are put on the chopping block at the age of 7, and et cetera, et cetera. So you get all sorts of little things that come and go.
Now, if I could ask you about the the advantages, the pluses and the minuses to bachelorhood as opposed to marriage.
No.
Well, I can answer that straight away. It's quite simple.
No, this is your opinion.
Yeah, it's not yours for us changing. You may be older and you may be better, but I don't need that right now. I do, of course, Mickey. I always cut out your thing. But as far as that's concerned, what was the question?
Bachelorhood, pluses and
bachelor.
Minuses.
Well, bachelorhood, as far as a person of our age, who obviously been, well, some of us have been through marriages or a marriage. When you come down to single, in other words, a single situation, is that what you mean by bachelorhood in
Yes,
that
the man
context?
is not married.
Because we are a bit, if we hadn't been married until now, we might be in another. So we're assuming that we have been married and we're not married now. So you mean in a way a single situation. I think the nice thing about a single situation at our age is that you can do somewhat what you really wanted to do maybe over the years, and you never had the time nor the opportunity, and so you can get down to sort of collecting things or writing things or reading things or doing what you want to do. It's very difficult to be with a female 24 hours a day. I don't mean that insofar at our age. Maybe we're semi-retired or retired, and if you are with a woman 24 hours a day, it's night and day. It's
Yes,
2 times 98.6 in bed, and it's in Malaga, Spain, it's 104 degrees in
It depends
during
on
the day.
which
And so it's very
woman you're
hot.
with in
It's very
Spain,
hot,
yes.
and there's not much rain.
And how do you feel about this?
No, you see, we're the best of friends and have been for 35 years, I think it is. And I think we have the same sense of humour, that's what it is. But we're actually 2 entirely different people.
I can stop for a second.
La 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 la. Oh, you getting to la 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 la.
Right.
Gentlemen, I have another question for you.
I want to answer that
Oh, you
last
do?
one,
Okay.
actually,
Very
yes,
well.
you see, because
No, you had your time.
no,
Right.
you had yours, very long one too.
Ha!
You see, he is totally
Don't
different.
give me.
in
Don't bring me
respect.
into this all the time. You
I
get your
have
own
to.
act together.
You are my friend.
Yes, I know, but
And I have to somehow show that you're not as bad as you seem to be.
I am.
I
I am
know
what
you
I
are,
am.
but the world needn't
I
know
am what I am.
that.
Bachelorhood.
Bachelorhood, you see,
Back to the back.
I don't know if you know, but I have been married 3 times, and
3. I thought you only told me twice.
3.
Oh, yes,
And I love being married. My whole life, I think, looking back on it, other than things that went on in between, that sort of thing, like the war and that sort of thing, and the business and so on, but my whole enjoyment out of life was being with somebody I loved. And that was very important to me all my life. Now why, I don't know. I got love from my mother, and that's it, but It wasn't the same. And so we are very different in that, but only that respect, I think, because everything else we agree on. And that's all it is.
Now, do you think, does age bring wisdom? Well, especially as we were talking about in relation to the other sex. Does age bring wisdom in your
Do you mean physically? You mean
Well,
can we
either
still
way,
can
yeah.
we still? Oh, you mean
Yeah.
yes? I think the fascinating thing about all this is that as I've grown older, and for the last I've been married too, and for some last few years I've been unmarried for my own reasons, and actually, while I've been unmarried, I've been more excited about the thought of womanhood all the time. It's almost like I've, they talk about things like, going over the hump. Is that right? In other words, what do they call it?
Nobody's ever said that to me, but
Yeah, that's right. Well, don't talk about it right now. Anyway, so in other words, right. But in other words, you go over the, you go through a period of 40, 50. I think in the girls they go through menopause, and men are supposed to go through the same. But actually, I haven't. I feel a bit rather in a way like Charlie Chaplin. I mean, I got the urge.
You behave like him.
I got shut up. I get the urge now more than I did before. And I think it's rather exciting. I don't know what's happened. I'm not growing any hairs out of my ears or anything like that, or things down here, but I get the urge more than I did before. So I'm very excited about that. That's because I'm more relaxed. I'm not
being alone.
I'm quiet. I'm not on demand every night. I can choose my time. I know when and where. Well, I think I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not on, it's not a question of, rabbits. If you take two people and you chuck them into a bed naked, and they're male and female, well, heaven knows, other things happen too. I cannot talk about that.
Why not?
Because I haven't experienced it. No, of course I haven't. And so I don't know. But as far as that's...
You've got two children.
No, but you don't go to bed with them naked.
Don't you?
No, I've never done that
Oh.
with them. But I... have you?
With my wife?
No, with your children, you said. Wait a minute. Anyway, so
It was
as far as your
slightly-
wife is concerned, or the woman you're with, it's quite likely to happen. But if you're married to that woman, if that's the way it is, boom, that's the way it is. So if you're free and you're alone, you can take your choices.
I see.
Now, when does a romance become a relationship? In the modern sense of that. When, in other words, when is the honeymoon over, so to speak, and how does one carry on, or does one carry on beyond that point?
Now, I'll answer that one. My wife will agree with me, actually, because I've already said this to her. I would say that the relationship becomes a relationship after possibly only 1 year. Before that, it was all romance and so on. And as far as I'm concerned, it still is romance, but it has changed in a certain way. And you fall in love, and you then get a relationship. And frankly, I don't want to be 1 minute away from my wives. Now, this obviously happens because she has business, I have a business, and we have to be parts occasionally. But I hate it.
And you've been
But-
married 3 times.
But,
so I mean,
right.
quite a lot of...
Yeah, but you see,
partners.
this is where my wife is going to
Yeah,
laugh.
it
Because
comes
you
and
see,
goes a bit, doesn't
every
it?
wife has lasted with me 15 years. You
Well,
see.
that's the record.
That's absolutely true. And why at the end of 15 years it failed, I don't know.
More to the point is, why did they want to get involved with you if you told them for life? And in fact, it was only 15 years. I mean, you might have had
I mean,
maybe a
maybe
it feels
contract
like a
or
lifetime.
a
Speaking
visa.
for yourself,
It was-
too.
That's right. Well, Mickey, we can't do this. Anyway, what was the question again?
Well,
Okay, let's see. Are women different around the world, say in different countries? Has it been your
Oh,
experience?
absolutely, absolutely. No, I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, you've got different cultures, and that is one of the basic problems with the multinational sort of polyglot situation maybe in America, and up to a point in Great Britain where you've had, since Macmillan allowed various other nationalities in, you've got various forms of ethnic cultures, and when they cross-pollinate. Yeah, I rather like that word.
It's good.
When they cross-pollinate, you have the basic, the rudimentary education, etc., and from that, what Father said, in India, or maybe in the Mojave Desert, or maybe in upstate New York, in Syracuse, etc., and so you have tremendous problems. We have, in a way, I have to say, we have to realize that the spots don't change. We all have spots, and the spots are there, and, if you try to interchange them with sort of cross pieces or whatever, it doesn't always work. Very difficult.
Do you find some women in certain countries to be easier to get along with than in other countries, or more sensual, or more pragmatic, or?
Well, I'm not a playboy myself. I mean, I don't go around the world, on flights, here, there, and everywhere, finding out what a Balinese girl does versus an Australian girl.
That's tricky.
I find all girls are fascinating. I think some of the southern European girls are slightly more, they dress in a way which is more, what we say, flirtatious. They haven't had possibly the puritanical northern type of culture, not culture, but culture.
Culture.
Dress.
Culture.
Dress, that type of thing, as far as dress is concerned.
They
tend to, want to wear longer dresses, and of course they're from the north with sort of, snow and ice and maybe or whatever, and so they don't look quite as attractive in flamenco dresses with hair, with hibiscus.
Does that make a difference in their behavior?
Or, it depends, really. I guess we know which country we're talking about, but in particular,
all countries
in the south. All countries in the south. I think they're much more flirtatious. They understand. They haven't been through so much of the, can I say, inhibitions, which they've been brought up by their mothers or fathers and their culture.
Okay.
But they are very religious, and you have to watch that when Mama comes in and says, the spaghetti's on the table, you get rid of Jesus, he's a bad man, you know what I mean?
Speaking of that, Mickey, have you ever seen Alex with a woman and thought, that will never work?
And thought that it would never work?
Thought that it would never work. You've seen him with someone, and you just thought that would...
The strange thing is that the first time he showed me a photograph of his future wife was in London 35 years ago, and she was utterly beautiful. She was in a bikini at the beach somewhere, and a beautiful figure and very attractive. I didn't see her for, I suppose, another 4 years, something like that, and met her in New York. And I never recognized her at all. Now, this is the point. And I'm wondering to myself of the women he's talking about, he's been talking about. I have seen women in his apartment in New York.
Sorry.
Which
Time
tell me
Time out.
He's about to throw down the elevator.
Time out. This is not a psycho thing. This is just, friends, we don't have...
We are friends.
Yeah, I know, but there's
that's
half
why we're
100
friends.
people
We both
around
speak
here.
the truth.
Yeah, it's a truthful out, that's right.
And have I ever seen him with a woman I think it would work? I suppose quite a lot of times, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's very difficult, isn't it? Yeah.
but I don't think I've been wrong either, because nothing ever happened.
So what are we saying then? What are you saying? What are you trying to say? You're trying to say to me, Mickey, that that every woman that I ever got.
What I'm
caught up
trying to
with
say
got
is
fat
that
and bloated
your
or what,
idea
I mean,
of marriage and love is totally different to mine.
Yeah. Well, are you saying
I think it's
therefore
come out in
that
this
maybe
thing.
I'm a selfish person?
No, you just don't know. It's something that's passed you by.
I've been blinded by.
I don't know what you've been blinded by, but it's passed you by, you see. You don't actually know what marriage or love and that is all about.
Yes, but
you really don't.
I don't go up 8th Avenue, sort of going, wow, and then
No, nor do I.
find it's actually a man in a wig.
Yes, but tragic, wouldn't it?
It would, yes, indeed. Or go through the Lincoln Tunnel on the $5 job, right?
Now, Alex, are you looking for?
Are you looking for
do
what?
you want to do you like the idea of finding a long-term relationship, or have you had a number of brief, torrid, passionate affairs? Is this a correct assumption? I'm getting this impression.
Well, you're getting that impression, yes, and I think if only as I think in the King and I, when he talked in that song, I can't remember, the bee is a bee, and goes from honeybee to honeybee, doing his thing. I mean, Mickey is the greatest exemplification of somebody who has been straight up with one woman all his life, but of course he hasn't, as we know. But he wants the security of a one woman situation, for a period of time, and some people do want that. And I'm getting a bit older now, and I really would like, one, a girl every month, I would say.
20 years ago, was that? Were you living this dream?
My teeth are very white tonight.
No, the point is really, when we both say "till death do us part,"
yeah. Oh, you get another fucking ring on your hand.
you must watch the language sometimes.
Oh, I can do it. At my age, you can do it.
This is we believe it at the time.
I'm about to get
Absolutely, I think everybody does, except my friend.
I'm about to get Norwegian security.
That's maybe why I like him.
The other thing over there on the right side.
Opposites are very good friends always. And
you
but
can't
till
muck
death
around,
do us part, you see,
Yeah.
is the answer to the whole thing.
That's why you
And
had all
we
those
all
guns in the
say
room
it.
all the time.
That's right.
Are we ready?
The whole thing is this: we're brought into the world, and
Smoking again?
would you like a cigarette?
No.
We're brought into the world, and we meet sooner or later a girl. As a guy, we meet a girl, and that's most of us, I guess. And the girl wants something from the guy, and the guy wants something from the girl. You look at the girl, and depending on what age she is and how well put together she is, you'll notice various things over the years which may have changed. You'll notice rather a drab Bronte girl from the North Yorkshire moors who's all in grey and rather sallow and has no makeup. And then maybe just after the war, you go to Park Lane and you see pretty girls walking down the street who are prostitutes. Prostitutes, that's my American expression. And you think, oh dear, and you see them in shiny red skirts and all the rest of that. And then the years go by, and then you pick up a magazine, which is a national monthly or bi-weekly magazine here, and you see almost the same girls with lots of makeup on. They got tinsel hair, they got little eyeshadows, they might look a bit like sort of Cleopatra as we would like to see it maybe in an earlier film. And so we are led to believe, maybe as we grow older, that maybe this is woman showing off her finest jewelry, of what you might call maybe the jewel in the crown, or the crowning glory, which is the hair. And so we get that, and then we now maybe get an era of time when maybe women's fashion goes into the breast, the boobs, as we call it, or maybe into the bottom, or the short skirts, or the long skirts. But it's all based on what? Is it based on because the girl in fashion is supposed to say, well, this is what we're trying to sell? Are we selling it for ourselves, or are we selling it to show off what we've got? And my basic inclination is to show off what we've got in order to basically entice a male into this cocoon.
And what is wrong with that?
There's nothing the matter with it. It's a matter of how you've been brought up. Basically, we come back to getting up for the girl and doing all the rest of it when she walks in the room, pulling out the chair. When you're a young boy, mother said this, mother said that. And suddenly we got a situation where, Jesus Christ, we got a prostitute in the room.
I've never thought that.
Now, do you see any advantages to being a woman today, particularly being a woman today?
I think they have every advantage because, not every advantage, but they have a lot of advantages because first of all the pretty ones can make themselves even prettier. And to me that is rather nice. I don't know quite what he's talking
Until you
about.
peel it all off.
Does that matter? It's
Well,
in the dark
it depends,
probably.
all
If they're
cats
clever, they
all
do
cats
it.
are grey at night.
If they're clever, you won't even see it. And mine have been clever. So, I mean, doesn't matter. To me, they have to be lovely to look at.
Happy days
and full
are
of love.
here again, la la
And
la,
intelligent.
La, 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 la.
My present one is all three.
Now, what would your ideal woman be? An ideal woman for? Well, I'll pose this to you first, sir. So, what is
Alex
an
is
ideal
the name.
woman? Alex.
Please call me that.
Yeah,
Or Alexandra. I like the long name now.
Alexander.
As I grow
What is
older,
your
I like the
ideal
long.
woman?
I like longer things.
Is
They
there
make me
such a-
feel more.
Because they're
more-
big
more
shorts
secure?
yourself.
What
Right.
what is
Yes.
your what would your ideal woman be, or is there such a creature?
Well, the ideal woman is someone who can make love really well. I mean, when you've been through, a few countries and, a few other, cultural people, and you realize what it's all about. You've got to find one who can really know and feel, and not be inhibited. This is the problem, is the inhibited side of it all, which so upsets one, and you meet men who've got the same problem. Men who know other men, they've got problems. Men who know other women who've got problems, and women who know men who've got problems. If we could only just get together and try and, get it all much more liquid,
So basically, someone uninhibited
would be much
would
better.
be your ideal woman.
Absolutely. Yes.
Uninhibited, but
Yeah.
really built. Or
Yeah.
what?
Those-
But I don't want the chintzy little piece of work coming in with all, lips all blown up and all the rest of it. And you know why they wear lipstick, don't you? Do you know why women wear lipstick?
Why is that?
What? You know why women they wear lipstick? It's tribal. Why they wear things in their ears, Well, let me just tell you straight up. As far as the lipstick is concerned, it is an expression of their the other end. You must know that.
The feet.
Did you know? Maybe you
No.
didn't. But that is it, and so it makes the men excited. It's primeval. It's basically animal, except we're not as good as the animals. But that's neither here nor there. And so that's the way life is.
You've said an awful lot.
Yeah, right. I
The
know.
other end? What is the other
I'm
end?
right. I'm right. About to have another.
You don't know?
Now, Mickey, what is your ideal woman when we're talking about
I hate to say this because it's true.
Well, don't say it tonight,
and
for
I will
God's sake.
say it.
No, because I'm going back to London tomorrow. I
Okay,
don't want to
damn
have
what
any
you're
more.
gonna do.
We've been good
You
friends.
have spoken
and this
for
is
double
becoming
the amount of
extremely
time that
heuristic again. And I don't want you to be de trop.
I'm not even going to talk about you.
Give him
Well,
a
don't
chance
flick-
here.
do-
Let's see.
okay, down
I'm
in the
not
hands again.
good at hiding your faces. My present wife
Fire's getting
is to
hot.
me the ideal woman.
Ah,
She is most attractive. She is sexual. and she's highly intelligent.
We don't have to. You don't have
Would
to be.
you mind just a
You
moment?
don't have to be personal about people. Just in general.
Do you
'Cause
hurt on that side, do you?
There are a lot of
You're
women.
going to be hurt on
there
this
are
side,
lot
too,
of-
in a minute.
There are a lot of women as well.
Okay, okay.
Right.
And let's see. Could you stop tape for just a second, Steve? Sure. Okay. Okay, now pose this both to you. Take it in your turn. Say you're both single. Say this could be 10, 20 years ago, whatever point. Both bachelors, any rate. You're in a bar. You see someone attractive at that bar. How would you approach that person?
Oh, completely inhibited. I mean, I would just. Chances I get a third party in. You know, I mean, I couldn't do it myself. Wasn't brought up that way. You just didn't go up to a girl and say, you know, hi and how are you, or you know, would you like to come down to my country estate next week or something? Because she might just say, no, screw you.
That's
I'm
a
married.
load of crap.
So I mean,
frankly.
so basically,
It really
let me
is.
talk. So I would tend to get a third party in, and normally, actually, what I would do is I would get involved with a girl, a friendly girl, you know, without any form of romance involved, and I would say to her, this girl, you know, is it, and I would go that way, and she would organise it, and then I would feel much more at ease. I mean, we're not trying to sort of, you know, it's not like, as they say in the hotel, you know, coming in off the street, you know. Oh, you know, do you have a room reservation? No, I don't. Oh, you're off the street. Oh, darling, yes, I am. Right, you understand?
And Mickey.
First of all, I think most of us just said it's a lot of crap.
Well,
Secondly, yes, of course, if you see an attractive woman at the end of a bar, shall we say, and she's alone, and you're alone,
Yeah.
and you are attracted to her, of course
Yeah.
you go up to her and say, can I get you a drink or something like that, to start with, something very simple.
in a bar.
In a bar, or wherever, where are we talking about? Anywhere, like a
Yeah,
bar.
in Los
Right,
Angeles,
so-
maybe.
yes, I don't mind where it is.
Maybe in
Timbuktu as well. I know they might have bars,
they
good
don't have
bars
bars
there.
there. Okay, yeah. I'm afraid
And of course you do that if you're a bachelor. You're not a man unless you do that. I mean, it's a natural thing for
so
me.
in other words, you've been doing this all the time then?
All my life.
You've been going up to girls in bars
Sure,
and
if I'm a
saying, you know,
bachelor
hi, you know, and you've only been married, you know, for... Yeah, well,
No,
anyway,
you,
that's...
you didn't
well,
finish, you
know,
didn't finish
it's
your rather
something which,
caustic
you know...
remarks. Now, come on.
No, I haven't done anything at all.
No, you've just
all I'm
interfered with
saying,
what I'm saying.
No, I'm just asking
The
you.
question
I don't
was
do it
asked to
myself.
me. You have
'cause I
talked
wouldn't
enough
know.
tonight.
I would be
Would
upset.
you kindly
I'd be
say,
upset
"Be
if the
quiet
girl
and
said,
shut
"I'm
up"?
married," and here's this big guy with the iron teeth, you know,
No.
on the right. Yeah, James Bond, you know.
What's wrong with James Bond?
No, it's the guy that attacked
We
him.
love
you know, the
James
big
Bond.
one. With the iron teeth. You know.
Oh, he's not James Bond. He's
No,
the guy
I'm
who
just thinking of the
fights.
film. I can't remember his name. I
Well,
bet his
let's
name
talk
was
about
Arn.
things you know nothing about.
So you know we don't necessarily do that because we're too shy to approach a woman, because once you approach a woman, what are you getting involved in? I mean, what are you getting involved in? Unless you've been introduced somehow, some way, you know, you just don't go into a bar and say hi. You know, you don't know, she may be into love at first sight.
Why not?
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Don't.
It's very fast.
It is, yeah.
It's about 85.
No, it's 95.
95, sorry.
I just tested it.
Maybe that's the trouble.
85, yeah,
Mine's
95.
60s.
Why don't you ask me, can I still get it up or something like that?
Oh no.
No, nothing like that. Okay.
Now.
Sorry. I just thought it'd be rather fun. No, the genders. Ask me about the girls, whether they enjoy it. I mean, you know.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Do they enjoy it?
There's no doubt in my mind over the years that a man becomes more interested in the sexual way of making love to a woman. Initially, it's sort of rather hot and flurried and rather a sort of what you might call a fetid moment. And also, at the end of it all, the man, naturally, is easy to tell. The woman is very difficult to tell. She gets, palpitation of the heart. She might become a bit sweaty, but you really don't know what's going on inside. But as you grow older, so you find out a little bit more and you test the waters. That may be the wrong expression. But anyway, you find out. And then as you do that, you become certainly, I'm not trying to make myself into wow, but you do, as the years go by, you do find a little bit more about how the whole act goes on. And I think that's very interesting. And I guess that is just something, with age.
Have anything to add to that?
Yes. His first
Would you
ball-
like to,
No, I don't-
what age were you when you did this? I thought you were about 15, I thought, right? I mean, you were an early learner.
18.
You were very early. 18,
18.
yeah.
That's
Well,
very late.
we're not
For
talking
an
about...
Englishman, it's not late.
Yeah, but I'm talking about as you grow older in the years.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking about how young you were when you first made love.
That's what you asked.
No. That we were talking. You may not have been
Listening to you. I've
Possibly.
heard it too often.
possibly, but that's neither here nor there. But as the years go by,
Yeah.
you become a little bit more professional in your not professional, but more understanding of the woman.
Of course, it goes with age, but then
That's
you
exactly
get
what
to
I
a
said.
certain age, like my age, certain things happen to a man which he can't anymore do what he used to do. Put it that way. Put it simply that way. And but I still find that there's more to life than sex. As I grow older, there is love. There's always love. And then there's also a feeling of real, what I call a real friendliness with people through the
When you walk
years.
down the street to the Safeway, do you say hello to people in the street and say,
I never
"Good morning,
talk- I
morning,
never-
Charles. How are you?
I never talk to anybody.
See you in the club next week."
I never talk to anybody I don't know.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's the first thing. However, people do talk to me, and so I'm very gracious with them. But those are what we were taught when we were young, to be very courteous to people, to be kind to women, and so on, that sort of thing.
And that
And
always
so-
comes through in the
It always
whole
does.
English
It
game,
comes-
because we are talking
yeah.
about two
Yeah.
basically English people who are brought up in the English environment, and we were taught, and this comes all the way through the whole thing from the very start of this conversation, with regard to always being very kind, very polite, etc., as Mickey has just said, and that is something which keeps on going through the whole scene. And so we're going to be very polite to the girl. But we don't know anything about the girl, and she may be terribly impolite to us if we but knew.
But
the
then you
trouble
leave.
is, the trouble is we don't necessarily know that at that early age, because we've been weaned,
At the early age, yeah.
weaned by our ancestors to behave like this. So we are rather like when you go into the Cavalry and Guards Club and you see the grey-haired colonel turning to a young subaltern, and he's standing there with his glass, with his suede shoes pointed this way. You will notice that the young subaltern is in exactly the same stance, because of course he wants to become the colonel, and therefore if the colonel does this, he will do that. Therefore, if mother or father says this, we will do this. And
What's
suddenly,
that got to do with women?
it's to do with the whole relationship as you go through in various forms of the weaning system. In other words, opening doors, pulling chairs out. Years ago, I mean, now, I live in Spain, in southern
Worst part of
Spain,
Spain, yeah.
with flamenco dancers and hibiscus in their hair, and I mean it's just a riot of colour and a riot of life. There isn't this inhibition that one goes on in northern climates.
So you're more and more seeking that out.
Oh, much
Yeah.
more. One becomes more relaxed to the whole game. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, the most frightening thing is the economic situation. Where the woman is after you because, especially after maybe a Donald Trump. Wow. Wouldn't that be fun? Mind you, he could pick up the paper and look under M for models, and he could have 10 a night. Cost him nothing.
He does.
I bet he does.
Now, what is when you're in a relationship? There's always a certain amount of compromise, I think, between people. And how much is too much compromising? When do you reach that point where you just decide?
Compromising about what?
Oh, just whether your towel will be on the left or the right. You'll slip
Habits.
yes,
Habits.
that sort of thing.
Well, we are creatures of habit. Would you like to speak now?
Yes. We are creatures of habit, obviously, and if I like to put my towels in the bathroom a certain way, I hope that my wife will accept that.
What if she doesn't?
I tell her, very nicely, and with all due respect for her too, that I have done this for longer than you, and I feel it should be this way.
Would you
But
like
see,
to have
like,
separate
well, the
bathrooms,
soap.
maybe?
Oh,
Would you like
no,
to have separate
no,
bathrooms?
no,
Some houses here do in
Oh,
America.
they do.
They build them with
I'm
separate
an interior
bathrooms.
designer, so I know exactly how.
Some are
bathrooms
actually built with separate beds.
No.
I mean, bedrooms.
Oh yes.
Yes.
That's everywhere in England too.
Go ahead.
So compromising, though.
Oh, a lot of people compromise, but once you start compromising, you see you have lost something.
What,
I think.
in other words, you're saying,
you see,
give
but-
in to her, you mean? Give in to the woman, or what? Or how are you saying
If
that?
you think that yourself, then you have lost something in the relationship between the woman you're married to.
Because you're no
or the
longer
woman
in
you're living
control.
with. And
Because you're no longer in
no,
control?
not in control. It's the fact that you started this whole association together
who you
by
did?
loving each other. I'm talking about
Or two people?
anybody.
Anybody, right. But
You
would you
start-
say it's the male that starts it?
Would you kind
Because you go into the bar and you're going to go up to the woman in
You're
the bar,
being your
as you
usual
said, and
self.
and you seem to go into every bar, and I actually, wow, and so you've initiated this. Now you're worried that she's taken the left towel instead of the right towel. You're out of control. What are you going to do?
You see, you have control on your mind. I have not got control on my mind. What I want,
So you're going to
When
let it
I'm
go.
with a
You'll
woman,
let
I'm
it
talking-
slip by. I would too.
you would.
Yeah. As long as
So what's all this talk about control then?
as long as you get out of it from once in a while, and you just have
No, you don't seem to
time
get
out.
what I'm getting at, and don't interrupt me anymore. When you start a
I'm
life
terribly
with
sorry.
a woman, I'll accept your apology.
Thank you.
When you start with a woman to live together, you are going to live in a happy way. And happiness is equal to love, as far as I'm concerned. You have to be happy. Now, if controversialness comes into this, as a word, comes into
Contra
it,
what?
don't worry about it. If it comes into your life, you are losing something that you had between each other, you see. And the moment that starts, it starts everywhere else as well, in odd moments. And slowly, that's why you become apart from each other eventually, and that's why you divorce. Because your life is no longer that lovely thing that you started with. Because some people it takes 1 year, it takes 2 weeks for some people, I know. But with me it takes 15 years for this to happen. And I reckon that's a pretty good record, to be married to 3 people and to have had a very happy, say, 14 years. But the last year was just impossible because things became controversial. You see.
It's
What?
interesting.
Because
Yeah,
I mean, why would they become controversial after 15 years, maybe 20 years, or maybe 10.
I said 14 years.
You said 14 years. Well, 15. I mean, why is it exact?
Because this happens in life. We're all made differently. You're made. Luckily, we have the same sense of humour, but we're both entirely opposites, actually, in what we're talking about tonight.
But why? But I don't understand why it would take 15 years when some people go through golden anniversaries of 50 years.
Well, to me, that must be the most boring thing in the world.
I mean, so do we come now back to the King of Siam in that film? What was it called? The film
King of Siam.
The King of Siam. It wasn't. It was called something. And he said the B, which goes from
We'll move on from the B, I think.
And of course, I might add, but I have to add this.
Always adding,
always adding one thing, and that is the B. This guy who goes from one to one to one. It takes a girl to go into it too. So let's not all be sort of, we are the sort of, whatever. Girls go along with this too. I mean,
you're talking about the hunter and the hunted.
It's a two-way
sort
street.
He is the hunter. You see, definitely. See, I'm not a hunter.
My zodiac, is Aries.
Is it? So's mine.
You're on the cusp.
April the 4th.
You're on the cusp.
Now, is it true that opposites attract? And if so, why is
it? Seems so tonight.
With us, I think
men and women do opposites.
Men and women.
You mean like blondes and dark hairs, or are you big boobs, small boobs,
in the mind,
big cocks or small cocks, or what?
Whatever works for you.
Whatever works for you.
Yes.
You mean character-wise? Yes, that's what you're talking about.
Well, you answer that one.
Well, no, I think it all is nothing to do with that. No, it's all to do with control. Without
there you are.
In my view, it all comes back to control.
You need to control everything.
It's all very well. The first few nights, the first few days, la di da da. It's all lovey-dovey, ha ha, boom boom. But if finally it comes, who's controlling who? And you can tell it a mile away. I mean, you can tell the way a male or a female speak to each other. Who's controlling who? They say it. Who's wearing the pants?
And what happens if the woman is controlling?
As in trousers, who's wearing the trousers?
In your respect.
Then you could tell it a mile away.
What happens?
What? I'm sorry?
I beg your pardon.
I do beg your pardon.
That's better. What happens if the woman is controlling you?
Well, I mean, you run a mile, don't you?
I just wondered.
That's what you said earlier on, because your habitual problems in the bathroom with your towel on the left or the right, and you said, Jesus,
making something out of a little minute
I'm sorry to be religious saying Jesus, I say Jesus. But, you got a real problem there,
Now, farther along this...
I'm getting a hiccup.
I'm not surprised.
Now, if you're talking... when we talk about control and all of that, I mean, how is... doesn't that get boring after a while, though? Always, finally determining that, this relationship's... wound up in control.
Answer that one.
Dangerous one.
Very.
Can you repeat the question? It's always best to say that. Can you repeat the question again?
Does always
always being worried about control, right?
Yes,
well, you see, the wonderful thing about this is that, at the end of the day, in the English vernacular, when all is said and done, you finally go to bed and you take your clothes off, and then this miraculous thing happens where if you've got the right girl, and if she is somewhat in control, and therefore she knows her femininity, you do it, and then everything explodes, and it's a wonderful feeling. You may have been through it yourself.
I hope so.
That's an heuristic comment.
Very.
And then you feel terribly, whatever, boom, and you go to sleep, and that's it until the next morning. So you do have, hopefully, as long as she doesn't kick and scream, and as long as you're not sort of being terribly sort of upsetting, you do have maybe 8 hours to get your act together for the next day. And of course, in normal circumstances, you do go off to work, and she may go off to work, who knows, And so, you all get back, and then you get together again.
Interesting, because you see, I said earlier, I'm an interior designer.
You're what?
An interior designer.
Well, you've done a great job.
Where? How
All over the world. All over the
point
world.
is, that's true.
But also interior in
Wait
other
a minute,
ways.
just a moment. Let me just finish something. I'm an interior designer, and I deal with the wife
You deal with who?
constantly.
With who?
Either listen or don't interrupt.
I do beg your pardon.
I deal with the lady or woman in question.
What happened to the man?
Would you stop interrupting
I'm sorry,
all the
right.
time? And therefore I'm used to dealing with women all my life. And yes, that's the only control that I've ever thought of, because I'm a very fine interior designer. I'm saying that seriously. And I do know what should be done, what shouldn't be done. Now, the way I use control over that, when they come out with something which I find is atrocious to my taste, we talk for the next hour.
So you really are a collector then of women.
Up.
You know, you like to have the right look on their face. Would you say that?
No, I'm talking about our house now.
Oh, I see. Right.
If you keep up with me a little bit. If I consider that she is saying something which is totally against my taste, and she's taken me on because of my taste, then I will spend the next hour discussing with her that particular point. And finally, if I haven't controlled this in 1 hour,
Well, the
then
conversation was
shut up. Then I say,
wow, what do? Go and have a big drink.
you need somebody else.
Down the end of the bar and wham.
This is why he's my friend, you see. And there's the only control that I actually provide in any sort of circumstances at all, which was my life. I mean, I've given it up now.
Yeah.
But that for 45 years was my life, and I loved it. I loved talking with women. That's not controlling them. It's giving them the benefit of your advice. And if they don't take it, then they need somebody else.
Okay.
That's all.
Now we have very
I think
short amount of time,
at
but
the end
yes.
at the end of the day, again,
You have to
I
have
think
the
you
last word?
No, I'm sorry.
And you've both, I think, you've been had relationships with much younger.
What sort of
women,
relationships?
Younger women, sexual relationships, romantic relationships, whatever. And are there any special considerations of that? Are there advantages to, say, being with a younger woman?
Well, you're asking a man here whose first wife was 12 years older than him,
You're not getting the
Your
chairs
second-
burnt, are you?
was 12 years
more
older
time, just-
than me.
Oh,
Sorry. My first wife was 12 years older than me. My second wife was 20 years younger than me. And my present wife is 30 years younger than me. Now, why I have done this, I have really no idea, except I was attracted to them, both. And if you're attracted to somebody and you love them, then you marry them. I mean, there have been women in between, obviously, but none that were sufficiently enough to marry them. So, whether the woman must be younger because you're growing older, it's never worried me, because at 70 years old was the first time that I thought I was old.
And
Right. No, I think it all comes back to this international culture situation where you go into a completely different phase. In other words, they're brought up somewhere in Indonesia or in India, or they're brought up elsewhere. And it's the same thing as if you meet a 25-year-old girl and you're 45, you have a different brain power, a different culture within your brain. And although it might be fun to be sexually involved, eventually, unless you're going to be sort of a Lolita type James Mason film, it doesn't really work out, because eventually you've got to come down to your own basic group of your own age, and also within your somewhat within your own culture. That is why there are, say, in the United States and in England and now in Germany and other places, that you have collections of people. There are more Poles in Milwaukee or whatever than there are in Poland, but they all stick together. People stick together. Mickey is to a greater degree, Russian blood, and he has Russian friends around here. The Jews have the Jews around them, and the coloured people have coloured people around, and it's very difficult to cross-pollinate all this. And so, and the same in the same respect, it's difficult to bed down and be involved with at the age of say 50 with a 20-year-old girl, because if you had a daughter, you might think, my God, this is my daughter. Very difficult.
You have spoken remarkably well.